Hi, I'm Cameron Yates of Yates Contracting, and today I wanted to talk you through the video of us pouring a concrete foundation. There are three major types of residential concrete foundations, and what we're pouring right now is a solid pour concrete foundation. There's also a CMU, which is a concrete masonry unit, and an ICF, which is a insulated concrete form. Basically, the most used one in the South, we're in North Carolina, the most used one is a CMU, and it's a concrete masonry unit, and it's basically a hard unit that you stack with mortar, and then some people will core fill, and some people just kind of leave hollow. The ICF is an insulated concrete form, and it's very similar to what you see here. It's a solid pour concrete wall, but it's insulated on both sides. So it only really makes most sense to use that when there's livable space on the other side of the wall, like a basement, or even if you're just going to form your walls out of it for your house. This one is going to have a concrete slab, and it's just an addition. So what we decided to use was a solid poured formed concrete wall. It's one of the strongest versions of a foundation, so that's why we like to use it. We form our concrete with 3/4 inch plywood on either side, and we use 2x4s kind of sandwiched together on both sides, 3 rows at about 1 foot each. And they're held together with snap ties and wedges. The wedges keep it at about 8 inches thick, and it also kind of pushes in the outside with the wedges so that you kind of have strength on both sides to keep it perfectly at 8 inches. So we got the concrete ordered from Concrete Supply Company. It's a big company down in the South. And we got it at a number 3 slump. There's a few different ways you can get concrete, and the slump is basically about how wet it usually comes. So we added a number 3 slump because we want to make sure it was going to be stiff enough so that it didn't bleed out of the bottom of our forms. We're pouring our wall as a monolithic pour with our footing and our foundation all in one piece. Since it was kind of a small area, we didn't really see the need in doing 2 separate pours. So we got it about a number 3 slump. We probably could have gone a little bit less, maybe like a 4 or a 5, because it was just so hot this day, but everything seemed to work out. So what you'll see me doing here is actually screeding the top of the concrete, which is basically just leveling it out, smoothing it out. You do that after you vibrate it. So what you saw me doing earlier with pushing that longer rod into the concrete, it's actually a vibrator. And what that does is it kind of, it takes out any kind of air pockets or any kind of voids so that you have a nice solid concrete foundation. We also built these troughs to keep most of the concrete from spilling out. I thought we could just keep the job a little bit cleaner. It was one of the first times we had used it, but it actually seemed to work out pretty well. So whenever you're pouring concrete, you just have to kind of plan as much ahead as possible. So for this job, we decided to get just a concrete truck without a concrete pump. When jobs aren't nearly as accessible, you usually want to get a concrete pump, which is a separate machine that will pump the concrete to wherever you need it, usually up to almost 200 feet away. This one's in the front of the yard, and we pretty much figured the dump truck, the concrete truck, could get to both sides of the pour. So we decided it wasn't worth the extra expense since pump trucks are just relatively expensive. So here we're just kind of finishing up the right side of it, and we're also trying to plan exactly how I can get to the left side. We had a pretty good idea to begin with, but planning for concrete is the most important part, especially on an extremely hot day, because everything starts drying. It becomes really difficult to work with. So having a plan ahead of time is one of the most important things you can do. So whenever we move the trough into place, we'll just kind of have him put basically as much as we need in that area. You'd kind of want to overfill it a little bit before you vibrate it so that you have a little bit of extra concrete that can seep down into the form. You want to make sure you can get it everywhere. Since we are doing a monolithic pour with the footing, we also want to make sure it comes out at the footing. So when you're vibrating it, you want to make sure you can kind of see it come out the top of that footing form. We're also pouring the footings for the front porch today as well, so you can kind of see the boxes in front of the foundation that are about 2 feet by 2 feet that are to hold up the 6x6s for the posts on the front porch. So what I'm about to do here is put in the anchor bolts for the wall above. Basically what they are is about 12 inches long by 1/2 inch galvanized steel, and code says they need to be about every 6 feet, but we usually do them about every 3 to 4 feet just to add a little bit of structure. They're 12 inches long and they're about an L shape, and what they do is they just attach the wall above it to the concrete so that you have a nice strong wall, and if the hurricane winds, nothing's flying away. So we put those in right after the concrete's poured, but you can't wait too long or it gets too strong, and then you'll actually have to drill them in and use epoxy. Here what we're doing is we're actually leveling up the walls. We always do it before we pour, but as soon as you start pouring, you never know, walls kind of push in, they push out, they get in and out of level. So we install these 2x4 blocks attached to the red mechanisms known as turnbuckles, and they turn left and right and they can push and pull. So we have those installed just in case we need to level it up a little bit, a 16th here, a 16th there. And that's what we're doing right now, just making a couple finishing adjustments. You always want to make sure that you make those while the concrete's wet, because if you wait too long, the wall is not going anywhere. So it's important to plan ahead, make sure you have kind of a plan of action for the whole day when you have a concrete pour, just so you don't get caught with dried concrete when you don't want it just yet. So we just have to smooth out the top. This one will have we'll be framing a wall right on top of this, and we're pouring a slab on the inside. So it doesn't have to be immaculately smooth, but you just want to make sure it's nice and flat. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and click on the bell to get notifications of when we post new videos. I'm Cameron Yates, and this is Remodeling America.